The backstage area of America's Got Talent buzzed with intense energy, but for Maria Liza Mendoza, it felt strangely quiet, as if the world around her had faded and only the sound of her own heartbeat remained. At just 22 years old, she had traveled all the way from Cebu City, Philippines, carrying nothing more than a borrowed dress, her passport, and the hope that her voice might change her life. She clutched a tiny worn-out charm, a miniature microphone her mother had given her when she was only 9. It had been her lucky charm during school competitions, barangay singing contests, and every fiesta performance she ever joined. Growing up in a modest home near La Hague, Maria had watched her parents work long hours, her father as a jeepney driver, her mother as a laundry helper, doing everything they could to keep the family together. She remembered singing outside their small window at night, imagining her voice soaring beyond the crowded streets, beyond the city lights, beyond the ocean. She dreamed of standing on a big stage someday, not for fame, but to make her parents proud. Flying to America felt like stepping into a world that once existed only in her dreams. As she waited for her turn, she could hear other contestants rehearsing, laughing, and nervously pacing, but she stayed in her corner, eyes closed, whispering a short prayer in Cebuano. She felt a hand touch her shoulder. It was Terry Crews, smiling warmly. "You okay?" he asked, noticing her trembling hands. Maria nodded, though her voice cracked when she replied, "This is for my family back home. Para nila ni tanan." Terry's expression softened. "Then sing with your whole heart. Make them proud." When the stage coordinator called her name, Maria felt her knees weaken. She took a deep breath and walked toward the massive doors that separated backstage from the bright AGT stage. The moment the doors opened, her vision blurred for a second, the lights were so strong, the crowd so massive. She had never seen such a huge audience in her life. For a heartbeat, she wanted to run back, to hide, to forget this moment. But then she remembered her parents' faces, her grandmother's blessing before she left Cebu, and the hundreds of people in her barangay who had told her, "Kaya nimo, Maria. You belong on the world stage." She stepped forward, her footsteps barely audible on the polished floor. The judges' table was intimidating: Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Sofia Vergara, each one a giant in the entertainment world. Simon looked directly at her with a curious yet unreadable expression. His eyes had seen thousands of performers, but at that moment, Maria felt as though he was looking straight into her soul. "Hello," he said. "What's your name, and where are you from?" Maria swallowed hard, forcing her voice not to shake. "My name is Maria Liza Mendoza, and I'm from the Philippines. From Cebu City." The crowd erupted in cheers. Some Filipino audience members waved tiny Philippine flags, shouting, "Go, Maria." Her eyes glistened as she smiled shyly. It was the first moment she felt truly seen. Simon nodded slowly. "And why have you come to AGT?" Maria hesitated, her throat tightening. "To give my family a better life, and to show the world the voice God gave me." The sincerity in her answer made Heidi clasp her hands together in admiration. Even Simon leaned back slightly, intrigued. Maria took her place in the center of the stage. The lights dimmed, the music cue flashed, and she closed her eyes. She inhaled deeply, ready to sing, ready to let the world finally hear the voice that had been waiting in her heart for so many years. The moment the first soft chord played through the speakers, Maria felt a cold wave rush through her body. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the microphone, but she kept her eyes closed, steadying her breath. She wasn't just about to sing, she was about to open the part of her heart she had protected for years. And as the arena fell into a deep, expectant silence, she finally lifted her gaze. Her first note floated gently across the stage, controlled yet fragile. Some audience members leaned forward, almost instinctively drawn to the purity of her tone. She began with the English verse of "All I Ask," her voice rising slowly like a quiet sunrise. There was something different about her, a softness that carried strength, a vulnerability wrapped in grace. Each word felt as though it was pulled straight from the core of her being. Heidi's jaw slowly dropped. Sophia whispered, "Oh my God," and placed a hand on her chest. Even Howie, usually expressive and playful, watched her with an unusually calm intensity. But Simon did not move at all. His face remained still, unreadable, focused in a way that only happened when he sensed something rare. As Maria reached the second verse, her voice grew steadier, fuller, braver. She remembered her father's call the night before, "Anak, iya kabalaka. Sing like you always do. Sing like Cebu is listening." That memory strengthened her, and the trembling in her hands disappeared. Then came the moment she had planned, a sudden, seamless transition into a soft Tagalog line. The shift was so delicate, so unexpected, that it sent a wave of emotion across the room. A woman in the front row gasped and pressed a hand to her lips. Another wiped tears quietly, trying not to sob out loud. The Filipino spectators in the audience erupted into emotional murmurs, some whispering, "Laban Maria," while others held up small flags, shaking with pride. Maria felt the energy change. The room was no longer just listening. It was feeling. Breathing with her. Hurting with her. As she continued, every note seemed to carry the weight of the sacrifices she made, the prayers she whispered, the dreams she fought to keep alive. Her voice cracked once, just slightly, but it wasn't weakness. It was honesty. And the crack made the moment even more human, more powerful. She stepped into her final chorus with newfound courage. Her voice soared higher than she had ever dared to take it in rehearsals. Terry Crews watched from backstage with wide eyes, his hands pressed to his head. "She's unreal," he whispered to a crew member beside him. When Maria reached her final high note, she held it, long, trembling, and heartbreaking. The entire arena rose to its feet in a unified wave. The sound of applause and cheers crashed into the air like a storm. People were crying openly now, wiping their cheeks, shaking their heads in disbelief at the small Filipina girl who had just conquered the AGT stage with pure emotion. Maria lowered the microphone, breathless, hands shaking again, but this time not from fear. From the overwhelming realization that she had done it. She had given everything. The music faded. The lights dimmed. And for a full 2 seconds, a silence filled the arena, a sacred silence, the kind that only happens after something once in a lifetime. Maria's tears finally fell. And then, the judges looked at her as though they had just witnessed magic. For several long seconds, Maria stood under the bright stage lights, unable to move, unable to fully grasp what had just happened. The arena was still buzzing from the standing ovation, the echoes of applause ricocheting around her like waves. She wiped her tears quickly, embarrassed but overwhelmed, and clutched the microphone as though it were the only thing keeping her grounded. The judges' panel remained unusually silent. Howie was the first to lean back, exhaling sharply as if he had been holding his breath the entire performance. Heidi clasped both hands over her lips, her blue eyes shimmering with emotion. Sophia blinked repeatedly, her face soft, almost maternal. But Simon Cowell didn't move an inch. His stare was fixed on Maria with a depth that made the audience hold their breath all over again. Finally, Simon leaned forward, rested his arms on the table, and spoke in a low, steady voice. "Maria," he began, pausing as though searching for the right words. "I've judged countless singers, and it's rare, very rare, that someone walks on this stage and makes everything just stop." Maria swallowed hard, unsure if she should smile or cry again. Simon continued, "You didn't just perform a song. You bared your soul. Every note, every word. I felt it here." He pressed a hand gently against his chest, something he almost never did. "It was raw, it was pure, and it was real. You told a story without saying anything except through your voice." The audience murmured in agreement, many nodding, many wiping tears. Sophia leaned into her microphone and said, "Maria, sweetheart. I could feel your heart breaking and healing at the same time. You made us feel every emotion. That was extraordinary." Heidi added, "You have a gift. Not just a voice, but a spirit that touches people. You didn't only sing, you connected." Maria covered her trembling mouth, overwhelmed. She glanced once toward the ceiling, whispering, "Salamat, Lord," hoping her voice wouldn't crack again. Then Howie spoke, his voice gentler than usual. "Maria, you have something that can't be taught. You brought authenticity. You brought culture. You brought your entire country with you tonight. And you made them proud." The Filipino spectators in the audience erupted in applause and cheers, waving their flags, shouting, "Proud to be Filipino. Mabuhay." But Simon wasn't finished. He looked at Maria with an almost fatherly seriousness. "You know, every year, I hope to find someone who reminds me why I do this show. Why we sit here. Why we search. Maria, tonight, you reminded me." Maria froze. Her heart hammered in her chest. Then Simon took a deep breath, leaned back, and reached toward the golden buzzer. The arena exploded before he even pressed it. People screamed. Hands shot into the air. Camera operators braced themselves as if anticipating a storm. And then Simon slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer. The sound echoed like thunder. A burst of blinding gold exploded from above, raining confetti over the stage. Maria gasped, covering her face with both hands as she fell to her knees. The judges stood up, applauding. Terry Crews rushed onto the stage, his huge arms wrapping around her in an emotional embrace. "You did it, Maria," he shouted over the roar of the crowd. "You did it." The golden lights shimmered on her tear-streaked cheeks as she looked out at the cheering arena. Strangers cried for her. Fans screamed her name. Flags waved proudly. In that moment, a young woman from Cebu City had transformed into something bigger, a global inspiration. And as she stood there, trembling under the falling gold, Maria realized the truth. Her dream had not only taken flight. It had finally, beautifully, come true.